back on today's video. Today we shall be talking about Vontone's theory of agricultural land use. And we'll be looking under this theory, we're talking about the aims of Vontone's theory, his hypothesis or assumptions which he held constant. We are going to also look at the cornerstone of Vontone's theory. And finally, we are going to look at his conclusion and the special outcome of his theory. Now, to begin with, the aim of Vontone's theory. Vontonen was so much interested as to the reason how and why agricultural land use vary from the city center to the countryside, and therefore he brought up two models or ideas to explain his aims. The first model which Vontonen brought up was the intensity of agricultural production, which declines or it falls with distance from the market, meaning that as one lives away from the market or the city center during that period, the intensity of agricultural production will fall. And Vontonen uses certain parameters to measure what he referred to as the intensity of agriculture, some of which he talked about the amount of inputs which is being put into the farm, such as labor, the amount of human hours employed in the farm, the income which is used in the farm, fertilizers, you can name them. And he also talked about agricultural land use patterns as well, or you can call it the crop types which vary with distance from the market. Now you bear with me that you discover that there are some agricultural produce that are very perishable and they are of high value, meaning that they are constantly being demanded. And locating such agricultural practices away from the city center will require a very high transport cost to be transporting these agricultural produce to the city for sales. Therefore, they are mostly, due to their perishable nature, they are mostly located very close to the market. Again, there are some of these agricultural produces that also require a constant care and protection from man, and therefore there is need for a huge amount of labor, which of course can be provided by the city. And that's the reason why I discovered that agricultural produces which are perishable in nature, such as vegetable, dairy products, are located very close to the market or the city, while those products which are less perishable and therefore requiring very little handling or storage facilities are mostly found at the countryside. So these are the two models which Vontonen actually used to explain to us the agricultural land use variation from the city center. So therefore, to simplify the real world situation or the complex real world situation, Vontonen came up with some assumptions. He came up with some hypotheses which he held constant during his period. And among these were the following. One, Vontonen talked about an isolated state that existed during that period, during the 1826, that there was an isolated state. An isolated state in the sense that the state has no relation with the external world. Of course, when we look at Germany during that period, you discover that Germany practiced the policy of isolation from other states, and therefore had no relation with the external surrounding countries. And during that period also, transport was very poor, and the main means of transportation was actually the ox-driven cart, which he assumed existed and therefore could not permit that interrelationship, that cordial relationship with the external world. Also, he talked about an isotropic landscape, therefore a landscape which is uniform in nature. What does it mean by a landscape which is uniform in nature? A landscape that has equal fertility, a landscape with a gentle slope, meaning that everywhere is relatively flat. We will check on that to see whether it is actually there's a possibility that every area is flat. And he talked about a landscape whereby there was easy access in every direction. Those are that is one of his assumptions. Also, he talked about the means of transportation, which I've earlier mentioned already, which was the ox-driven cart, and which was poorly developed. And every agricultural product or produce were transported to the market using this ox-driven cart. And transport costs was directly proportional to the distance you travel, meaning that the more your distance, the higher the transport cost. And again, he also talked about the fact that agriculture will tend to cease to the production of a particular agricultural produce will tend to cease in an area whereby the cost of production is already exceeding the revenue, the revenue obtained from the sales of the product. And he mentioned that this point or this margin where agriculture ceases to exist, it is known actually as the margin of cultivation. Meaning that a farmer will cultivate after this margin of cultivation should definitely be making losses. So among these are other hypotheses which we'll look at it as we go ahead. The cornerstone of Bonstone's theory, in other words referred to as his principles, is related to economic rent. We'll talk about economic rent. Economic rent. In other words, it's also known as bit rent. Rent actually is the reward obtained from the use of land, and therefore the reward in his definition actually refer to economic rent as the surplus returns or profits the farmer earns in cultivating on a piece of land a particular crop type rather than another type of crop, which means that there is a return, there is a profit which you will enjoy for cultivating a particular crop type on a particular piece of land, given the location of that piece of land, rather than cultivating a different crop type. And that is economic rent per wealth. Bit rent, it can also be referred to as, like we said, bit rent. And we talk about bit rent, actually, a bit is actually an ability to pay for the usage of land. Therefore, the ability for one to pay for the usage of land is the bit rent. So from this, all this is all cornered to the fact that the farmer is an economic man, meaning that the farmer is out to maximize profit and minimize costs, most particularly production and transport costs. And therefore, when we talk about economic rent, we can now calculate it with the formula economic rent, also known as locational rent. Locational rent to refer to the total cost or the total revenue, the total revenue which is obtained from the sales of the agricultural produce minus total costs. Total costs here include cost of transportation and cost of production. So we can simplify this formula by using. We can talk about the total revenue. Here we have to talk about LR equals to Y in bracket N minus C minus TD. So Y simply refers to your income, M is market price, C is the cost of production, TD will refer to transport cost times the distance we travel. So in previous lessons, we are going to work out mathematically a lesson. We are going to come out with how to calculate locational rent using the formula placed on the board, so that we can learn how to do this. So now to look at his conclusion, it is very important first of all that we talk about his partial outcome before we come out with his conclusive statement about agricultural land uses. So his partial outcome happens to appear as such. We have two models here, or two diagrams. Diagram A showing his original land use, which is a concentric zonation. Concentric because it takes a circular form. And diagram B will show us a modified land use or a parallel zonation. Probably after some years that he discovered some limitations or some shortcomings about the diagram A. So he came up with diagram B to explain with these shortcomings. He came up to explain this. So let us look at his spatial zonation, most particularly the concentric zonation, and what the various layers actually are illustrating. The first point that we find here are the market areas, which he made mention of. Let us take a review again about what we said about his hypothesis. Remember that one of his hypotheses was the fact that there was just one single market that was operating during that period, and therefore provide the necessary farm input, as well as the main market in which the farm outputs were being sold, and therefore there was no competing market during that period. The same as the farmers all had perfect knowledge about the market, and therefore there was perfect competition. There was no black marketing somewhere, so much that every farmer earns the same price for a given output at a given location in a land area. Therefore, if we consider this is the market, and in his zonation, we saw that the first layer is actually occupied by a very intensive cash crop cultivation. He preferred a very intensive cash crop cultivation, most particularly vegetables and the cultivation of flowers, the rearing of animals to extract milk. Or we talk about dairy farming. This was due to the fact that these products are perishable in nature, and since they are perishable in nature, locating them further away from the market, say in the countryside, will require careful handling, which will cause more cost of production. So it's preferable to be located very close to the market where they can easily be obtainable. Now, the vegetables and the flowers were also constantly demanded during that period of time, and therefore locating it at the countryside will require that it should all be transported from the countryside to the towns. The reason why it has to be located very close to the market, and the market also had very high population that will always demand for these products. The second zone actually was occupied by forests. We all know that forest during the Neolithic period, forest was a very important source of fuel, and it was used for home heating, to be used for cooking. It was also used as building materials during that period. And forest was very heavy, bulky too, and therefore locating it away from the city where there is a high population will always require very high cost of transportation. However, forest is not an agricultural land use pattern, but it had to occupy this zone because of its importance that it played during that period. Now, the third zone, which he mentioned, was actually kept for intensive food crop cultivation. Intensive food crop cultivation, that is because there are some crops that, such as potatoes, berries, and some cereals, which are very bulky to be transported, and therefore they were located very close to the main city. And the fourth zone he made mention of was that occupied for arable and animal farming, where crops were grown and also animals were being reared on the same piece of land, where we talk about mixed farming being practiced. Therefore, the rearing of animals and the cultivation of crop on the same piece of land. But priority was given more to the rearing of animals to extract milk during that period, and therefore they were also due to the need of land, they had to locate very close to the city or midway around the city and not further away to the countryside. The fifth zone actually was kept for extensive cereal cultivation like maize, berries, wheat, you can name them, which require very large portion of land. And since land is relatively cheaper and much toward the countryside, they are mostly located in those areas. These produce also are lighter in terms of weight and therefore can easily be transported to the countryside. The last zone actually was occupied by extensive animal rearing, most particularly pastoral agriculture. And we all know that cows actually are self-transporting and therefore requires little or no transport cost, and therefore they could be located at the countryside where they will bear no cost of transportation. Now, the peripheries actually, or the outer section of this, he referred to this area as a wilderness, meaning that anything that is being done here it will be unprofitable because we are now dealing with a barren land. Now, after some years, Tonen discovered that there are some of his hypotheses that can no longer be held constant, and therefore he had to modify his concentric zonation by bringing in two important modifications. Firstly, he brought in a satellite market, a small town with its own marketing area that will provide services to the land use or the farmers that are found around there, the small market. Therefore, farmers were not forced to go to the main city to sell. Therefore, there was a competing market area to sell agricultural produce, and therefore transport cost again now was not very much important in his modified theory as compared to his concentric zonation. And we should remember that he also made mention in his concentric zonation that the transport network was poorly developed, and normally the means of transportation was through the ox-driven char. But he brought in a navigable river in his parallel zonation, whereby he made mention of the fact that the existence of a navigable river will also reduce the cost of transportation, since transporting through the river is cheaper as compared to the road. So most farmers will also transport their produce on via the river, which is more cheaper than using the ox-driven cart. And this modification or the navigable river caused the concentric layers of Voltaire's original model to change, to become more parallel, and they are more parallel to the river course. The reason why you look at the pattern, it is rather straight as compared to the concentric zonation. So I hope that you've all enjoyed this lesson, and I pray that we are going to meet again to talk more about Tonen's applicability of his theory and his criticisms that other theorists have also come about. So you're welcome.